Hello, cyberspace. It's me, Angie, and I welcome both you and your ears to an episode of Life, Love, Music, and Space Travel. In case you're wondering who Angie is, I'm Angie, and I'm super stoked to spend some time sharing with y'all some of my experiences and thoughts on living, loving, music, and space travel, or spiritual experiences as I often refer to as space travel. A rather broad spectrum, right? Well, my hope is to always share something that resonates with, intrigues, excites, or perhaps inspires you. On that note, I invite you to sit back, buckle up, and take a little trip out into the cosmos with me. Hello, cyberspace. It's me, Angie, coming to you with episode number 39 of my podcast, Life, Love, Music, and Space Travel. I'm sitting here on a Wednesday night. It's 11 p.m. And I gotta admit, I'm kind of at a loss for words, which is definitely surprising to some out there who know me because I am a pretty loquacious gal. That's one of my favorite words. Somebody said it one day and I was like, what does that mean? It means pretty much wordy. That being said, the truth is I have been struggling to get another podcast episode out. It's been about 2 weeks since my last episode, and a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks. My head is kind of jumbled, and I've really been struggling to sit myself down in front of the computer and my microphone and press record. Which brings me to, I guess, the topic of this week's episode. It's kind of going to be based around fear. I put something out at one point, one of my previous episodes, about fear. But this last few weeks, fear has been rearing its ugly head in my life. I am a work in progress, but I'm coming to find out, once again, I'm just being reminded of my, call them whatever you want, issues, character defects, character traits, perfectionism issues. And I was reminded recently, I won't say I was reminded, actually it was brought to my attention at a recent therapy session that I have a fear of contempt that others might have for me, or a fear of my own contempt of myself. It's been rather eye-opening, and I've been reflecting on it a lot these past few days. I do believe it's why I've been having so much trouble sitting in front of the computer. The length of time between episodes has been challenging me in regards to sitting down and recording another one. I've been in my head about what am I going to talk about, who wants to listen to me, who is listening to me, all of these things that have been getting in the way of my creativity. A lot of time in my head. It's a big opportunity for growth for me. I was recently reposting on Instagram one of my past episodes on fear, and as soon as I was done, something popped up, and it was about fear. It was so great. I sent her a message. My dear friend Treasure, back in Colorado, her page name is Blooming as Treasure. That's on Instagram, at Blooming as Treasure. And she's a spectacular woman, really, very insightful. Well, her reel was all about allowing your fear to teach you something. I think I've spoken about that, but it's so interesting how concepts all of a sudden come into my mind as though I've never heard them before. It's absolutely a perfect opportunity for me to use my fear as fuel. A couple of the questions that she asked were, what fear is most alive for me right now? I guess it's a couple things. I'm afraid of judgment. I've been thinking a lot about who wants to hear what I have to say. And I'm reminded that I really need to be recording as though no one is listening. Just like I need to dance like nobody's watching. But I can forget that. Talking a little bit about what's been going on with me. I'll bring that stuff into play because it's been a really busy past 2 weeks. January 25th, I left for Florida. I headed to Orlando for Podfest. In the morning, I had a ketamine infusion. That was interesting because normally I get the IV and I was super dehydrated, so they had to do it intramuscular, the shot, and it was a different experience. So I feel like that kind of set me off on this adventure for growth and change. I was fearful of what the new experience was going to be like with the infusion in a different form. And I worked through my fear. I got on the plane. I flew to Florida. I met up with my dear friend Alex from the Builder's Journey, and the adventure began. What I've been thinking about also that's going to tie into this episode, I think, is the idea of living a life of my own. Because that's where I am. I feel like I'm going to be all over the place. I went and had this wonderful experience at Podfest, met all kinds of new people, placed myself in an environment that was pretty overwhelming at times. Lots of new people, lots of learning, all kinds of experiences. I actually took the opportunity to, here's outing myself, microdose some mushrooms, which was spectacular. No, I wasn't tripping, anything like that. It was a very subtle something. And actually, it was great. I sat out in the sun. I soaked up some vitamin D. I had great conversation and I grew a lot. Life has been a wild ride. I'm realizing again that I have been doing things for others still, or at least in my mind, not doing some things for fear of others' contempt, or doing things that I feel like are authentic to me and yet harboring this underlying fear of contempt. What will people think of me if they really know what I'm like, or what I'm doing, or what my belief system is? And it's been a while since I really cared as much as it seems I've been caring lately. I'm not really sure what that's about, other than relating it to the fact that I've been really busy. I've been doing a lot of stuff. I've been traveling. I said I had this wonderful adventure in Florida, but it was filled with a lot of emotional stuff. Meeting up with my buddy Alex brought up lots of things for me that I eventually worked through. I came to realize, well, I thought for a little while that I had this serious issue with a fear of intimacy, only to find out that it was a healthy fear of intimacy, or it was actually, my inner Angie telling me to step back and set my boundary. That was a real shift mentally for me. I know that going to Podfest, which I thought was, I didn't think it was going to be just about podcasting, but there was, as always, it was about so much more. It really was an adventure. So it was wonderful to be open-minded to the experience. In turn, I had a wonderful adventure. My last day, I went to SeaWorld by myself, put my headphones on, actually, and walked around the park through the seas of people. There were hordes of humans, lots of adults and plenty of children. But it was a really wonderful experience overall, considering I'm not a real fan of zoos. But an event on my own. Sometimes I'm still struggling with the idea of living this life of my own. I came back home from Florida. I went to see my therapist, which was a great way to unpack my experience a little bit and prepare for kind of my next adventure, which was February 2nd. Mom and I left for Charleston, South Carolina. A part of it was to just visit and go to Charleston and check the place out, but I also had tickets to go see Bob Weir and the Wolf Brothers and the Wolf Pack. I love anything Grateful Dead, but February 2nd, 2223 would have been my 13-year wedding anniversary. Well, as many of you know out there, I'm not married anymore. I am divorced, and it has been a challenging experience to move through that place of acceptance. I'm sad about it. I'm still sad about it, but I decided that what I was going to do is make a new memory. So instead of 2/2 Groundhog's Day being all about my no longer wedding anniversary, it was about a concert experience that was spectacular, but emotional just the same. Yet bringing in this idea of a life of my own, My mom dropped me off at the concert. I felt like I was 15, making sure that I had water and if I needed any snacks and if I was going to be okay while I waited outside. And I met up with a great guy named Don de Lamont. If I'm pronouncing that, I'm probably butchering it. But his wife dropped him off. They were doing some family stuff. And so she decided she would drop him off. My mom dropped me off. And we kept each other company. And we had great conversation. We talked about spiritual experiences. We both love the Grateful Dead and anything Grateful Dead-ish. So we were both excited about the whole experience with seeing Bob. And it was really wonderful. I went into the concert and met up with some other people and just soaked it all in. Still very much aware of the day and this new life that I've got going on. I'm so grateful to be tapped into the spiritual world. I talk about it so much, but it just keeps me going. It makes life so much more purposeful, or not just life, but it makes the challenging stuff so much more purposeful. Fear has controlled how I walk through this earthly experience. For sure, a fear of failure, a fear of success, placing ridiculous expectations of perfection on myself. Oh, good golly. Up to 29, I was unaware of my, quote, self, and I lived mostly in reaction mode. And now I really am stepping back a little bit more with this curiosity about why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it's been really neat that even though I've had this bubbling up of my fear of others' contempt, I kind of now know that I want to do something about it. Instead of just letting it control me, I'm going to try and do something about it. As I mentioned earlier, my friend Treasure, one of her questions was, what fear is most alive for me right now? And repeating myself, it's definitely this fear of judgment. Am I doing the right thing? Is this where I'm supposed to be? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I affecting the people around me? And then she asked, where is your fear living in your body? For whatever reason, I just have to say, I feel like it's living in my heart. I feel like my heart is being affected. My heart is growing. I'm not really sure what's going on, to tell you the truth. I'm very grateful to just be aware. And so I'm continuing to stay open-minded to growth, using my fear as fuel. Fuel for what? Fuel to grow. When I was at Podfest, one of the tracks that I attended, the gal asked a few questions. One of them being, why am I making this podcast? As I sit here in front of the computer, in front of my microphone, jabbering on, feeling incredibly insecure. I've been pretty happy with my prior 38 episodes. I know in the beginning I was nervous, and all of a sudden this feels new. I don't feel settled into my topic. I kind of feel like I'm going around in circles. When I remind myself, why am I doing this podcast? And I think it could be a question that anybody could use in regards to whatever your creative outlet is. Why are you doing what you're doing? For me, I'm doing this as an authentic way to express myself, to put my thoughts and feelings out there, to be vulnerable and expose myself in a manner that I feel helpful to others. That kind of leads into the next question. How does it support the listeners? Well, I'm not exactly sure who's listening. I do know some people who are listening, and I like to think that it will inspire them to look within themselves and maybe just connect with me in relation to, are they feeling fearful? We're all in a place of growth, whether we know it or not. Are you feeling fearful of contempt, or what's going on with you lately? I'm hoping that it's supporting y'all in the manner that it reminds you that you're not alone in whatever you might be going through. There was a time when I used to think I was the only one who felt the way I felt. I was the only one who had these feelings, and that is not the truth. I'm reminded every time I go onto Google and start to type in a question that it pops up long before I finish typing, because somebody else has asked the same question already before me, hundreds of times probably. that is the reason that I'm making this podcast also, for you and for me. And I could probably say for me and for you, being honest. Because just in case nobody's listening, I know that right now I am growing and I'm actually feeling better. And if you have listened to the first 16 minutes of this episode and you're still here, I'm sure you can probably hear that I'm feeling a little more comfortable. I'm decompressing. It's been a busy few weeks. And the last question on here from this track was, it says, what happens if I don't do this? Well, as I mentioned, it's been about 2 weeks. And what I started to notice was, oh, I don't really have to do the podcast. What am I thinking? It's already too late. I've already missed, it's 2 weeks since my last episode. People will have forgotten. I've already failed. Like, all of those noises started to come in. There was an underlying feeling of sadness and grief. I love doing this. I do feel like my prior episodes have been a little more, as I mentioned, organized and topic focused, but this is just a vulnerable episode where I'm allowing myself to be honest that I am sort of a mess. Feeling lots of feelings. Oh my goodness, traveling a lot. It's kind of exhausting. Podfest was a lot of people around me. I actually very much enjoyed the microdosing psilocybin. That's what it was. It was just a small amount. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It just did something, lifted the mood a little bit, was not high, wasn't anything like that. I fully enjoyed it and yet felt this concern of what other people would think about me. That's sort of been eating at me. Yet it is coming straight out. I think I've mentioned it a lot of times. I love the spiritual life. I am super interested in the psychedelic world. And yes, I'm also a gal who's on a journey of recovery and self-discovery. I have abstained from some things for a long, long time. And I have this huge fear of contempt of perhaps what my recovery world might think of me. And yet, as each day goes by, I kind of settle in a little more comfortably around the idea that, fuck, Ange, this is your trip around the sun, however many trips you get, whatever amount of days I get to wake up. I don't want to have regret that I lived it for somebody else. Maybe that sounds harsh. I mean, I think those who love me and really care about me are genuinely interested in what I'm interested in to a certain level. So what happens if I don't do this? Perhaps somebody else out there too misses getting a little bit of validation in their life. That, for one, let's say I started this podcast initially in dealing with my having moved from Colorado to North Carolina after a divorce, selling my house, moving out of my state of 27 years, leaving my fellowship, my work community, everything that I'd known was gone. And this podcast became an outlet for me to share that. I am not the only one who's gone through that stuff. I like to believe that I have maybe introduced people to some of the tools that have been important to me. Ketamine infusions. If I don't do this, maybe somebody won't hear about how ketamine has changed somebody's life. It's not for everyone. Here's the disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychotherapist, psychologist, nurse practitioner. I'm also not telling you to go out there and use ketamine in any sort of recreational manner. I go to a clinic and it's under supervision and that kind of stuff, but it has been life-changing and life-saving for me. And I don't want to not talk about it because people are dying and people are suffering and people are struggling. And if that perhaps allows you to just be open-minded to the fact that there are other options out there, then I don't want to not share myself if I might help one other person. Getting through divorce, knowing what it might be like if your ex-husband's girlfriend reaches out to you. Getting through your no longer anniversaries. I have a lot of stuff that's going to be going on in my life, and it is my pleasure to share it with y'all, for sure. My friend Don, who I met at the Bob Weir concert, left me a voice message on my website. He's like the first person to leave a real message. It was really wonderful. He talked about his experience or his perspective on spirituality. I am so hopeful to start a community where we do converse and we do share with each other our thoughts on what's important to us and what our life is like, what's going on. I love dogs. Send me a message on my website and tell me about your dogs or your cats or your lizards or whatever animals you happen to love. I don't have human children of my own. I do have a beautiful stepdaughter who I'm not as in touch with as I'd like to be, but I'm so grateful for the social network and the opportunity that I get to kind of see her grow. She has a fantastic TikTok page. It's just under her name, Courtney Millslagle. She's fucking funny and I love her. I'm not married to her dad anymore, and I've struggled with the idea of, is she still my stepdaughter? I'm definitely rambling on, but I think this has been necessary for me. I'm sure I'll put out another episode very soon. I'm actually coming up on a year. It's been a year since I started this podcast. So maybe it's appropriate that the one before my year anniversary is a little jumbled. But what I do want to share, because I think this is good, is out of one of my favorite daily readers. It's actually called A Life of My Own, and it's Meditations on Hope and Acceptance. It's a Hazelden production. It's a great daily reader. It was for February 7th, which was yesterday. I'm just going to read the top page. It says, or the top paragraph. It says, perfection, our own and others, was, and still is for some of us, a burdensome expectation we have dragged everywhere. And because we've expected the impossible, we've lived either in perpetual shame over our own failings or in guilt over how we have treated others who are only human. To be human means having defects of character, whatever you want to put in there. It's like, I'm just a garden variety human who's doing the best they can and is definitely going to fuck it up every now and then. And the quote at the bottom says, I will try to do my best today, but I will not feel ashamed if I make mistakes. That's what this episode has been about. It is just me fumbling through, not feeling prepared, and I'm going to release it anyway with the hope that there's something in here, at the very least, that you're reminded that you too can be imperfect, or you can just put out whatever it is you're putting out and feel okay about putting it out there. That for me is the big separation between the spiritual and the material world. The material world freaks me out so often. The money side of things, am I doing the job right? Am I paying the bills? All that stuff. But the spiritual world for me just says, if you wake up, get up, do the thing, and get through it, that's ultimately really what it's all about. Any pressure that I put on is either self-imposed or society imposed. Here's to fucking it up every now and then and being okay with that. And then I will say, I'm going to kind of close it out with, I really love my therapist. I only see him once a month, but I went to my last session and we talked about my fear of contempt that others might have for me. And he had this great suggestion, which I really loved. He said, okay, I've suggested this to another client who has anxiety kind of over what other people might think of him. So he said, go into the grocery store, stand in the water aisle, wait for somebody to come through and ask him where the water is. And it already makes me uncomfortable. And yes, the purpose is for somebody to look at you like, are you crazy? Or even if they say something and the worse they react to you is, the better. You gain more points that way, just because then I get some practice in being okay with somebody else not thinking highly of me or questioning my sanity or my smarts or whatever it is. I'm hip to that. I have not gone to the grocery store and done it yet, but he did say to me loosely, take this into account. We got to remember who we're dealing with. But he's like, now go out and piss some people off. And I thought, well, I'm living with my family, my parents and my brother, so it'd probably be very easy to piss one of them off at one time or another. But I am appreciative of the suggestion and just the idea that What other people think of me is none of my business. So if someone's going to judge me on this episode or claim that it's crappy, well, I will fully admit it is not one of my best, but that's okay. I needed this one. I did. I needed this one to just sit down, press record, and put the episode out. I do want to say thank you for all of you who have listened to me, who continue to support me. I'm inspired by y'all. Here's to another day of living. I have been listening to a book. I'm going to throw in one of my favorite parts of this deal sometimes, which is using Poddecks and asking one of the questions out of the Poddecks app. And the question that came up recently was, how are you currently learning? A course, reading? Well, I'm going to say I'm definitely currently learning through life experience. And so right now my fear is definitely teaching me. This uprising of some fear recently is teaching me, and I'm definitely learning through that. I have started listening to another book, and I've mentioned many times, I'm an audiobook gal. You can definitely check through my show notes and maybe use one of the links that I have to get a book yourself or to start yourself an audiobook subscription. But one of the books I've been listening to is called The Myth of Normal, and it is by Gabor Mate, if I'm saying that correctly, along with Daniel Mate, his son. It says, The Myth of Normal, Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture. And it's really talking a lot about, at least thus far, what I'm taking away from it is what's considered normal is not really healthy. It's actually pretty abnormal. I highly suggest perhaps checking it out if you're into audiobooks. And I also read The Body Keeps the Score, or I listened to The Body Keeps the Score recently, which was a fantastic book. Yeah, that's a couple things. I believe I'm probably going to include my buddy Don's message after this. I asked him if I could include it, and he said yes. Prior to playing Don's message, I'd like to give him a shout out. I really am super grateful for your willingness to let me share your message, first of all, and for sharing a message. You are officially the first person to leave me a topical voice message, and I feel like it's my first step toward really building a community. Thanks, my friend and fellow music lover. Now, take a listen to Don.
Hey there, Angie. It is Don, your buddy you met in Charleston. I just listened to your latest episode, and I have to say, I could not stop listening. And it really got me thinking a lot about spirituality and forming your own form of greatness or whatever it is. I've struggled with spirituality all my life, and even more so since denouncing God and Christianity back in 1992. But the older I get, the more I start to feel like instead of focusing on that one thing, that maybe spirituality is a series of events and things, like you and I meeting at the Bob Weir concert. Why, of the 1,800 people that were there, or even the 6 people that were there before it started, was it you that I was drawn to and started talking to? I feel like things like that are things that I question, but then I also accept it as it's something that's just fate or that's supposed to happen. The spiritual side of me really does see that there is something bigger than us because things like that happen. I feel like I could talk to you about this all day, which one day I hope we will. But great episode. I really loved hearing your take on spirituality and everything, and just being completely unapologetic and being you. It's very inspiring. So big love from Atlanta. Love you. Mwah. Keep it going.
Thanks, Don. I am super duper grateful for your support and feedback. If anyone else also wants to leave a message that's appropriate for sending out to the masses, please go to my website, www.lifelovemusicandspacetravel.com. click on the little microphone and send me something. I'll definitely be back with episodes kind of talking a little bit more about what I did. Probably Podfest, I'll go in a little bit more in depth. I'll definitely talk about my Bob Weir Wolf Brothers experience, maybe Charleston, perhaps. And I have lots of stuff going on. I appreciate again for y'all indulging me and sticking with me through this episode in particular. On that note, thanks for listening. Bye. So we've reached the end of today's episode. Thanks so very much for listening. It's now time to reconnect to planet Earth and all that comes with living on the blue ball. I'd love to hear your ideas for future episode topics, along with any and all positive and or constructive feedback. Please feel free to contact me at ashysbadass@gmail.com. Thanks again for spending some time with me and allowing me to share myself with you. Until next time, please be gentle with yourselves, be kind to animals, and do all you can to allow your authentic selves to shine brightly.